The room was quiet. Early morning light was coming through the windows at NASA. Screens were on, voices were low, everyone was waiting. It was supposed to be a happy day. Space Shuttle Columbia was coming home. Columbia had been in space for 16 days. The mission was long but successful. The astronauts had done many science experiments. Everything looked normal. On Earth, families were watching TV. They were smiling. They were counting minutes. Soon, they would see their loved ones again. Inside the shuttle was Kalpana Chawla. She was calm, she was focused. She had trained for this moment many times. Re-entry was always dangerous, but this was not her first flight. She trusted the shuttle, she trusted NASA. The shuttle was moving very fast. It was entering Earth's atmosphere at more than 17,000 miles per hour. The heat outside was extreme. Fire was forming around the shuttle, but this was normal. This always happened. At NASA, engineers were watching the data, green lights, normal numbers, everything looked fine. Then something changed. A small warning appeared on one screen. It was quiet, almost invisible. One sensor showed strange data from the left wing of Columbia. An engineer looked closer. He leaned forward. "This is not normal," he said softly. Another engineer checked the screen. He saw the same thing. The temperature inside the wing was rising. This should not happen. The room became tense. They checked again. Maybe it was a sensor problem. Maybe it was nothing. But deep inside, fear started to grow. Minutes passed. Then another sensor failed and another. Inside the shuttle, the astronauts did not know what was happening. They were following normal landing steps. They were talking to mission control. Their voices were clear and calm. Kalpana Chawla was in her seat. She looked at the controls. Everything inside looked normal. But outside, something was very wrong. Hot air was entering the shuttle through a damaged area in the left wing. The damage was not new. It had started on launch day when a piece of foam hit the wing. At that time it looked small. NASA believed it was safe. Now that small damage was becoming deadly. At NASA, fear turned into panic. Engineers talked fast. Voices became louder. Data was disappearing. One engineer picked up the phone. This was not a normal call. This was a desperate call. He called the flight director. "We are losing sensors," he said. "The left wing is heating up." The flight director's face changed. He understood the danger. They tried to contact the shuttle. "Columbia, this is Houston," a calm voice said. "We see some unusual data." There was a short reply from the shuttle. The crew acknowledged the message. Kalpana Chawla was still calm. She had no reason to panic. No alarm had sounded inside the shuttle. Then suddenly the communication started to break. Static, silence. "Columbia, Houston, do you read?" Mission control asked. No answer. They tried again. No answer. The room went silent. People stopped breathing. Screens started to go black. Radar lost the shuttle. Outside in the sky over Texas, people saw something strange. Bright lines of fire were breaking apart across the morning sky. At first, some thought it was a meteor. It was not. It was Columbia. Back at NASA, everyone knew the truth before it was spoken. The desperate call had failed. The shuttle was gone. 7 astronauts were gone. Kalpana Chawla was gone. Some people cried. Some sat in silence. Some could not move. This was not supposed to happen. Not again. Columbia was supposed to land safely, but something had gone wrong long before this moment. A small mistake. A small piece of foam. A warning that was ignored. And now the world was about to learn the truth. This was not just an accident. It was a tragedy made by human decisions. And this was only the beginning of the story. The story did not begin in the sky. It began many days earlier on the ground. On launch day, the weather was cold, very cold. Engineers were worried. Ice was everywhere on the launch pad, but the countdown did not stop. Space Shuttle Columbia stood tall, white, powerful, and ready. Cameras were watching from every angle. Thousands of people were watching live. Inside the shuttle, the crew was smiling. Kalpana Chawla checked her seat and straps. She had waited years to return to space. This mission was special. It was about science, not headlines. She felt proud. The countdown reached 0. Fire exploded under the shuttle. Columbia lifted off the ground. It looked perfect. But only 82 seconds after launch, something happened. A large piece of foam broke off from the fuel tank. It flew through the air at high speed. Then it hit the left wing of Columbia. The impact was strong. Cameras caught it, but nobody reacted. At that moment, it did not look dangerous. Foam had fallen before. It had happened many times in past missions. The shuttle kept flying. Inside Columbia, the crew felt nothing. Kalpana Chawla did not know that a silent enemy had already damaged the wing. Back at NASA, engineers reviewed the launch videos. One engineer paused the screen. He zoomed in. He watched again. The foam hit looked bigger than usual. He felt uncomfortable. "This hit looks serious," he said, but others were not convinced. They believed the shuttle was safe. They believed the heat shield could handle it. Meetings were held, charts were shown, words were used like probably and unlikely. No one wanted to stop the mission. No one wanted to say the wrong thing. The shuttle was already in space, and space missions are expensive, very expensive. As days passed, the mission continued smoothly. The astronauts worked hard. They laughed. They followed the plan. Kalpana floated in zero gravity. She worked on experiments. She talked to students on Earth. She inspired millions. From space, Earth looked peaceful. No danger, no warning. But back on Earth, a few engineers were still worried. They asked for help. They wanted high-quality images of the wing from military satellites. They wanted to know if the damage was serious. The request was denied. It was called unnecessary. Management believed there was no problem. The mission was allowed to continue. Days turned into weeks. The shuttle was preparing to return home. Re-entry was always the most dangerous part, but NASA believed Columbia was strong. No emergency plan was made. No repair was attempted. The damage remained hidden. On the final day, the crew woke up early. They followed normal steps. Nothing felt wrong. Kalpana Chawla strapped in. She trusted the system. She trusted the decisions made on Earth. As Columbia entered Earth's atmosphere, the damaged wing faced extreme heat. Hot air rushed inside. Slowly, quietly, the wing began to fail. Back at NASA, sensors started to die one by one. This was the moment of the desperate call. This was the moment when the past mistakes returned. The disaster did not happen suddenly. It was building step by step, decision by decision. And the worst part, it could have been stopped. The question now was simple but painful. Why did nobody question that day? Space is quiet, too quiet. From inside Columbia, everything felt normal. The crew followed their daily routine. They floated, worked, joked, and rested. No alarms, no danger signs, no fear, but danger does not always knock. Sometimes it stays silent. Far below on Earth, a few engineers could not sleep. They kept thinking about the foam strike. The image was stuck in their minds, a white piece of foam, fast, heavy, violent. One engineer replayed the video again and again. He slowed it down, frame by frame. The foam did not just touch the wing, it slammed into it. His stomach tightened. "This is bad," he whispered to himself. He wrote emails, he talked to his team, he warned his seniors, he asked for action. He did not ask for panic, he asked for answers. Can we see the damage? Can we take photos from space? Can we be sure the crew is safe? The questions were simple, the answers were not. Meetings were held, long meetings, PowerPoint slides filled the room, risk charts, past data, old missions. Some people said this happened before. Some said the shuttle survived. Some said there is no proof of serious damage. And then something dangerous happened. They became comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of safety. The request for satellite images was pushed aside. It was called unnecessary, too costly, too late. The mission was already successful. Why create trouble? The warning became silent. In space, the crew had no idea. They trusted the system. They trusted the people on the ground. Kalpana worked on experiments. She spoke with joy. She smiled during calls with Earth. She once said, "The path from dreams to success exists." She believed that path was safe. Days passed. Columbia moved around Earth again and again. Each orbit was peaceful. From space, Earth looked beautiful, blue, calm, but beauty can hide danger. The damaged wing was still there, waiting. No one repaired it, no one checked it. Re-entry day arrived. The crew prepared calmly. This was routine. They had trained for years. Columbia turned and faced Earth. As it touched the atmosphere, fire surrounded the shuttle. This was normal, always normal. But on the left wing, the fire found a door, a small hole. Hot air rushed inside at extreme speed. It burned the wing from the inside. Sensors began to fail one by one. Back at NASA, screens started changing color, yellow, then red. Engineers stared. This was not normal. "This looks serious," someone said. Phones rang, voices shook. Then came the call, the desperate call. By the time NASA realized the truth, it was too late. The warning had come early, very early, but it was ignored. Not because people were evil, but because people were human, afraid of being wrong, afraid of stopping a mission, afraid of saying, "We don't know." Columbia was breaking apart high above Earth, and the silence from space was the loudest sound NASA had ever heard. The disaster was not just metal and fire, it was silence. Silence of ignored warnings, silence of unanswered emails, silence of unasked questions. And now that silence had a price. A very heavy price. The sky looked peaceful that morning. The sun was rising over Earth. From space, everything looked calm and beautiful. No storms, no warning signs, just blue oceans and white clouds. Inside Columbia, the crew followed their final checklist. They were coming home. This moment was familiar. They had trained for it many times. Every move was planned. Every step was written. No one was afraid. Kalpana Chawla sat quietly in her seat. She focused on her job. Her face was calm. Her mind was clear. She trusted the shuttle. She trusted the people watching over them from Earth. The shuttle moved faster than sound, 17,000 miles per hour. Fire wrapped around Columbia as it entered Earth's atmosphere. This fire was normal. It always happened during re-entry. But this time something was different. The fire was not only outside, it was inside. Hot air was burning through the damaged left wing. The heat grew stronger every second. The metal inside started to weaken. Still, no alarm warned the crew. Inside the cabin, everything looked normal. At NASA, Mission Control was watching closely. Data was changing fast. Numbers did not make sense anymore. One engineer stood up. "This is not good," he said. Sensors on the left wing stopped sending signals. One by one, they went silent. The room became tense. Flight controllers tried to stay calm. Their voices were steady, but their eyes showed fear. They spoke to the crew. "Columbia, Houston, we are seeing some unusual readings. The crew replied, clear voices, calm voices, no panic. That was the last normal message. Then silence. The screen froze. A few seconds passed, then more. Mission Control tried again. Columbia, Houston, do you copy? No response. They tried another channel. Nothing. The silence was heavy. Someone whispered, we lost them. Outside. High above Texas, the sky changed. People on the ground looked up. They saw bright lines of light breaking apart. Fire moved across the sky like falling stars. Some people thought it was beautiful. They did not know the truth. Columbia was breaking into pieces. The left wing failed completely. The shuttle could no longer stay together. It tore apart at extreme speed. Inside NASA, no one spoke. Some stared at the screens. Some covered their faces. Some could not move. They all understood. The crew was gone. 7 lives lost in seconds. Dreams ended in the sky. Kalpana Chawla's journey ended far above the Earth she loved so much. But the questions were just beginning. How did this happen? Why were the warnings ignored? Who decided it was safe? The last signal from Columbia was not just a lost message. It was a message that came too late, a message about silence, a message about trust, a message about mistakes. And now, the world was about to hear the truth. For a few seconds. Nobody spoke. Mission Control was frozen in time. The screen showed nothing, no signals, no data, just empty space where Columbia should have been. Then reality arrived, slowly, painfully. One officer removed his headset. His hands were shaking. Another looked at the floor. Someone else whispered a prayer. They all knew this was not a delay. This was not a technical issue. This was a loss. Outside NASA, the world was still watching. News channels were live. Anchors were smiling, waiting to announce a safe landing, but the landing never came. Instead, strange reports started appearing. People in Texas called emergency numbers. They spoke about fire in the sky, about loud booms, about pieces falling from above. Reporters became confused. NASA stopped the live broadcast. That silence said everything. Families of the astronauts were waiting in a special room. They were watching the same screens. They were smiling only minutes ago. Now they felt something was wrong, very wrong. A door opened. NASA officials walked in slowly. No one needed words. Tears came before the message. Hope disappeared in seconds. 7 families lost everything in one moment. Dreams turned into memories. Back on television, the news changed tone. Words became heavy. Voices became slow. Space Shuttle Columbia has been lost. The world went quiet. Schools stopped lessons. Offices stopped work. People stood still in front of screens. Kalpana Chawla's name spread across the world. In India, people cried. In America, people mourned. In space communities everywhere, hearts were broken. She was not just an astronaut. She was a symbol, a girl who dreamed of the sky, a woman who reached the stars. Now she was gone. NASA began recovery work. Debris was found across hundreds of miles, pieces of metal, pieces of dreams. Each piece told a story. A story of heat, a story of failure, a story of warning signs ignored. Investigators arrived, scientists, engineers, experts. They asked hard questions. What went wrong? When did it start? Who knew? The answer was not simple. The disaster did not happen in one day. It happened over time, with every meeting that chose comfort over safety, with every warning that was delayed, with every voice that was too afraid to speak louder. The shuttle did not fail alone. The system failed. NASA grounded all space shuttles. Flights stopped. Confidence was broken. For the first time in years, NASA looked at itself in the mirror, and what it saw was painful. This tragedy was not just about space. It was about human decisions. It was about listening. It was about responsibility. The world demanded answers. Families demanded truth. And the truth was coming, slowly, in pieces, just like Columbia. But one thing was clear. The silence after Columbia was louder than any explosion. And it would change space history forever. The answers were not in the sky anymore. They were on the ground. After the disaster, NASA did something rare. They stopped everything. All space shuttle flights were canceled. Silence filled the space program. Now the search for truth began. Debris from Columbia was spread across hundreds of miles. Fields, roads, forests. Pieces of metal lay everywhere. Each piece was collected carefully. This was not cleanup. This was an investigation. Every broken part was tagged. Every small piece mattered. Engineers treated the debris like a puzzle, a very painful puzzle. Slowly, the picture became clearer. NASA formed a special team called the Columbia Accident Investigation Board. Their job was simple but hard: find the truth, no excuses, no hiding. Experts studied the wing pieces. They looked closely at burn marks. They measured heat damage. One piece stood out, the left wing. It was destroyed from the inside. This was shocking. The heat did not only burn the outside of the shuttle, it entered the wing during re-entry. That heat should never have been there. The investigators followed the trail backward, back to re-entry, back to orbit, back to launch day, and there it was, the foam strike. The board confirmed what some engineers feared from the beginning. The foam hit had created a hole in the wing. During re-entry, superhot air entered that hole and melted the wing from inside. Columbia did not explode, it slowly failed, second by second, but the investigation did not stop there. Another question remained. Why was nothing done? Why were warnings ignored? Emails were reviewed. Meeting notes were opened. Conversations were studied. The board discovered something dangerous. NASA did not fail only because of foam. NASA failed because of culture. Engineers had concerns, but they were not taken seriously. Requests for satellite images were denied. Managers believed the risk was acceptable. They had seen foam strikes before. They thought nothing bad happened last time. This thinking was deadly. The investigation report was released to the public. It was honest. It was painful. It blamed systems, not just people. The report said this disaster could have been prevented. That sentence shook the world. Families of the astronauts read every page. Some cried, some were angry, some just wanted peace. The truth was heavy. Columbia was lost not because space is dangerous. It was lost because warning signs were ignored, because questions were not asked, because silence was easier than action. Kalpana Chawla and her crew trusted the system. That system failed them. The investigation ended, but its message did not. Never ignore small problems. Never silence concerns. Never choose comfort over safety. Columbia's debris told the truth. And that truth changed NASA forever. Machines do not make decisions. People do. After the investigation, one truth became clear. Columbia did not fail only because of damage. It failed because of human choices. At NASA, many smart people worked hard. They were experienced. They were trained. But even smart people can make mistakes. The biggest mistake was not listening. Some engineers saw the danger early. They felt something was wrong. They asked questions. They asked for images. They asked for time. But their voices were weak in a loud system. Managers were focused on schedules, on success, on cost. The mission was already in space. Turning back felt impossible, so they chose the easy path. They assumed the risk was small. They assumed the shuttle was strong. They assumed everything would be fine. This was not carelessness. This was overconfidence. Over many years, NASA had become comfortable with danger. Foam strikes happened before. Nothing bad happened then. That history created a false sense of safety. What happened before will happen again, they believed, but space does not forgive assumptions. Another mistake was communication. Engineers and managers spoke different languages. Engineers spoke in risks and numbers. Managers wanted clear yes or no answers. When answers were not clear, doubt was ignored. No one wanted to stop the mission. No one wanted to be the person who caused delay. Fear of being wrong became stronger than fear of disaster, and so the warning signs stayed quiet. After Columbia, NASA changed. They had no choice. The space shuttles were grounded for years. New rules were created. Safety became more important than speed. Engineers were encouraged to speak, to question, to challenge decisions. New inspection tools were added. Shuttles were checked in space. Damage could no longer stay hidden. Columbia forced NASA to grow up, but the cost was terrible. 7 lives, 7 dreams. Kalpana Chawla and her crew became teachers to the world. Their loss showed that technology is not enough. Systems need honesty, organizations need courage, progress needs humility. This lesson was not only for NASA, it was for hospitals, for airplanes, for factories, for governments. Anywhere humans make decisions. Small warnings matter. Silence can be deadly. The Columbia disaster became a warning written in fire across the sky, and the final question remained: what legacy did Kalpana Chawla leave behind? That answer was not about tragedy, it was about inspiration. The sky did not win, the dream did not die. Even after the loss of Columbia, one name continued to shine in the hearts of millions. Kalpana Chawla. She was born in a small town. She looked at the sky and asked simple questions. How do airplanes fly? What is beyond the clouds? She did not see limits. She saw possibilities. Her journey was not easy. She moved far from home. She studied hard. She failed many times, but she never stopped. She once said that the path from dreams to success exists. She proved it. Kalpana became an astronaut. She touched space. She worked among the stars. She showed the world that background does not decide the future. After the Columbia disaster, people remembered her smile, her courage, her words. Students around the world read about her. Young girls saw themselves in her story. Dreams grew stronger. Schools were named after her. Scholarships were created. Her name became a symbol of hope. NASA did not forget her. The space program became safer, more careful, more humble. Every new mission carried the lessons of Columbia. Each astronaut knew the cost of silence. Each launch carried respect. Kalpana's story was no longer about tragedy, it was about purpose. She showed that science needs bravery, that progress needs honesty, that success needs heart. Her life reminded the world that failure is not the end, giving up is. The stars still wait, and every time a rocket rises, her story rises with it, not as a warning, but as a promise. A promise that dreams are stronger than fire, stronger than fear, stronger than silence. The sky was never the limit, it was only the beginning.